And hello, everyone. Thank you so much for checking out today's episode of Hardball Sports Talk. My name is Brandon, and joining me, like always, is my good friend Alex. Alex, how are you today?
For Brandon, I'm doing well, other than the weather today, which was very windy.
Yeah, we both live in Michigan, different parts of Michigan. My area, we got snow with very windy conditions, made some whiteout conditions here. And where he was, they were talks of thunderstorms and tornadoes. So we
Yeah,
both had different spectrums of weather, but we had to deal with weather, both of us today. I don't think either one of us is jealous of the other one, and or anything like that.
right.
If we sound and look a little bit chipper today, it's because last night we had the honor to interview John Minch for this podcast, and I'm going to tell you guys something. He was by far the nicest person we've ever met. So courteous, telling us some great stories. I am really excited about this episode. It was just a great time talking Little Big League. He gave us some great stories from his playing days and on set stories. It's just a great time with him. We're looking forward to that interview. And he's hopefully going to help us out, get some other guests. We'll see what happens there. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, but he's said he's going to try to help us hook us up. So
Yeah,
we are very appreciative that everything he's done for us so far. I just chatted with him earlier today, and nice guy, you know. So, John, if you're listening to this, thank you so much for joining us yesterday. We hope you had as much fun as we did,
yeah.
but I highly doubt it.
The fact that when he got off and we cut the recording, and I just looked at you and stared at you like, did that just happen? And how awesome was that?
Yeah, that was,
And we were speechless. I don't know, probably for a good solid 2 minutes, just kind of like looking at each other and like, uh, wow, can't believe that
yeah.
happened.
And we went into that interview with no expectations
Mhm.
whatsoever. I didn't know I didn't know if he was going to be very chatty, if he was, I mean, he seemed like a nice enough guy when I was chatting with him through text messages this whole time. But the stories that he gave us, just incredible. So
Yes.
whenever that comes out, I'm hoping late March, early April, we'll have that one come out for you guys. Be sure to give it a listen, guys. It's going to be a great episode.
Mhm.
Whenever we get it all edited out, there was a lot of. We actually ran out of questions, and then he kept. So I was about to end the recording, and then he kept talking and giving us more stuff. So it was just a great time. So thank you, John. Again, if you're listening to this, we appreciate it. And again, I hope you enjoyed your time with us. Moving on, though, a couple, actually, just one sad note to pass along here. So we're doing this movie ranking, and one movie that I'm pretty sure is really high on both our lists is the movie Miracle, which is based on the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team. One of the actors from the movie, his name is Kenneth Mitchell. He passed away over the weekend at the age of 49 from Lou Gehrig's disease. So we just want to say our thoughts and prayers are with his family. He was also in one of the Marvel movies off the top of my head. I don't remember which one, but it was very sad to see somebody pass away, and especially I just watched that movie last Thursday. Last Thursday was the anniversary of the hockey game. Actually, the movie's climax takes place during. So I watched that every anniversary of the U.S. Russia hockey game in 1980. So, but our thoughts and prayers are with his family. Moving on, though, we are today going to preview the AL Central for Major League Baseball. We're going to do this one a little bit different than the rest of the divisions. So the Tigers play in the AL Central, and we are not going to talk about the Tigers tonight, besides predicting where they'll finish in the division. The reason being is we are both pretty big Tiger fans, and I feel like we could honestly spend a good 20, 25 minutes, if not longer, just talking about the Tigers. So what we're going to do is when we're done previewing the rest of the divisions, we're going to have a special episode just for the Tigers, where we're breaking down their roster and their upcoming season. So tonight we're just going to be talking about the other 4 teams in the division. And last week I wasn't very pleased personally, and I'm not blaming Alex for anything. This was 100% on me.
No, you can
I just
blame me.
no, it was not me because I the one who set this up. I was not pleased with how that episode turned out last week. I think we both of us were very unprepared,
Very
and I think
unprepared.
part of it was we're both breaking down 5 teams, and this isn't a full-time job. This is something we do on the side, and we're not making any money on it right now. So I guess it's not even on the side. It's just for fun at this point. But I figured it would probably be easier if each of us takes 2 or 3 teams per division. So tonight we both take 2 teams. And what we're going to do is we'll break down the teams in whatever way we see fit, whether it be free agent signings, previewing the roster, talking about some key players on the team, whatever we see fit per team. So I'm going to start things off talking about the Cleveland Guardians tonight. The Guardians are in a transition period here. Longtime manager Terry Francona retired after the past season, and they hired Stephen Voigt, the former big league catcher, to take over. It's an interesting hire. There's a hit and miss record of former players as managers in baseball. You got Brad Osmus, for example, who, let's just face it, did not a great job at all at any of his stops. But then you also have guys like Dave Roberts who've had huge success out in LA. So we'll see what happens here. But this team is a really interesting team. They have a nice young catcher in Bo Naylor. He isn't really known for a huge bat. He's projected to bat about 250 this year with a 792 OPS. So solid, a little bit above average hitter. One thing that he does struggle with is his catching, throwing runners out. He only caught 13% of stolen base attempts. League average is 19% last year. So we'll see how he does this year. Backing him up will be Austin Hedges, who's coming back to the Guardians. He is fully a defensive catcher. There's no bat whatsoever. He's got a career 189 batting average in 9 seasons. So he is completely a defensive catcher. A couple other players to be excited about if you're a Cleveland fan. You got Josh Naylor and Jose Ramirez on your infield. Those are 2 guys that are going to be batting in the middle of the lineup for them every day. You got Stephen Quam and a couple other guys in the outfield to be excited about. One person that there's actually 2 players here that are very intriguing to me on the prospect list. One, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce his name, to be completely honest with you guys. I did everything I could. I searched it online, tried to find it, and the best I can do is Davision de Los Santos. I have no idea if his first name is actually pronounced Davision. That's just, I'm sounding it out here. And again, I Googled it and didn't really help me a whole lot there. But he is a Rule 5 draft pick from Arizona. And we talked about the Rule 5 draft. Basically what it is if you take a player in the Rule 5 draft, he has to stay on your big league roster the entire season or else he gets offered back to his old team. Davision de Los Santos is a infielder who is ranked number 8 in Cleveland's farm system right now at a corner infield position, where their top prospect, Kyle Manzardo, who they traded from Tampa Bay last year, he is a first baseman. So you got 2 prospects, one your number 1 prospect and your number 8 prospect, that both knocking on the door of the big leagues. One of them, though, you have to keep on the team the whole season or else he has to go back to Arizona. The other one, he's knocking on the door of the big leagues, and they play leagues pretty much the same position. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. I'm not entirely sure what their plan is. I am not a huge fan of taking fielders in the Rule 5 draft for this exact scenario. Reason being, normally, if you take a pitcher, for example, you can stuff them in the bullpen because you're always going to need a bullpen arm. And yeah, you can't send them down to AAA, but you can store them in the bullpen all season long. It's not going to terribly hurt your roster. But if you have a fielder, that's basically a bench position that you're losing, and the guy's probably not going to be super close to MLB. The highest he's played is Double A. So it'll be interesting to see what they have there. Another prospect that might make an entrance this year is George Valera. He's an outfield prospect. He is number 6 in their system. So a few young talent coming up. The starting pitching for the Guardians is probably their strength. You got Shane Bieber, Tristan McKenzie, Tanner Beebe, Gavin Williams, Logan Allen. Couple decent pitchers there in Shane Bieber and Tristan McKenzie. And with how weak the AL Central has been the last couple of years, I think, this team can make some noise in the division. And when we get to our predictions, there's literally 4 teams that I'm going to say the exact same thing for, by the way. So there's only one team in this division that I really don't like at all. But the rest of them, I think, will be in the race. They didn't really bring anybody too major in this offseason. The only major signing they had, and major, I used the term loosely there, is they brought back Carlos Carrasco on a minor league contract. But like I just said, their rotation is pretty set there. So Carrasco is either going to be in AAA for relief starts to spot starts, or he's going to be in the bullpen. We'll see what happens there. And they had a couple key losses here. They got Cole Calhoun, their outfielder. He is still a free agent, so theoretically he could come back. We'll see what happens there. And then Lucas Giolito, we talked about him last week with Boston. So overall, though, I think this is a young team. And again, like I said, there's 4 teams in this division where I could see them making some noise, and Cleveland's in that conversation. Again, at the end of it, we'll give our predictions, but that's what I have for Cleveland. A lot of young players to be excited about, a couple question marks. My biggest question mark with them is they had a manager in Tito, Terry Francona, who got the best out of his players, and the players absolutely loved playing for him. We have a first-year manager in Stephen Voigt. The question is going to be, is he going to be able to manage a team just as good as Tito did? What kind of drop-off is there going to be, if there is going to be any, which I would imagine there is, because Tito is an all-time great manager. I don't think there's any debate there. Very underrated manager, in my opinion. But Stephen Voigt, like, what kind of does he bring to the table? Is he going to be a Brad Ausmus type manager? Is he going to be a manager that can get the best out of his players? And time will tell. I'm not going to make any predictions there. But that is what I have for the Cleveland Guardians. So Alex now is going to take over, and he's going to talk to you guys about the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, the Twins. I was actually looking at their off-season additions and subtractions, and I didn't realize this. One of their key losses is Sonny Gray, who actually finished second in the Cy Young last year. I did not know that till I looked it up. I figured that's one of the big losses. They also lost Jorge Polanco, the strikeout or home run guy, and Joey Gallo, and another starting pitcher who's now a current Tiger, Kenta Maeda. But they did add a few, I guess, decent pitchers in Chris Paddock and Anthony. I can't even read my own writing. Desafini, I think it is. They also had Carlos Santana. And if that name doesn't sound familiar, he played for the Guardians and the Royals. And he always killed the Tigers pitchers, no matter who was pitching. I don't think he has the same killer instinct, but I guess when you're good against one team, no matter what team you're playing for, it won't matter. And then I think it was earlier today or earlier this week, they actually traded for Manuel Margot, who is an outfielder. I saw. I think it was a 3-way trade with the Dodgers and possibly the Angels. I should have wrote more of it down, but I didn't. that's on me, my bad. Um, yeah, they have a few prospects. They have 4 of them in the top 100. Their big one is called Walker Jenkins, who's an outfielder. He ranks number 10 in the top 100. He's only in the single A right now. The guy I'm actually looking to see how they work him in, is in Brooks Lee. He's currently in the AAA system right now, in their minor league. But they also have Carlos Carrasco at short. So it's kind of curious. There was a lot of money that went towards Carrasco, not Carrasco, Correa. I was thinking of the pitcher that you were just talking about. Um, yeah, you muted, so I don't even care what you said. So, anyways,
Um,
yeah, uh, Carlos Correa, who's their shortstop, who took money, was going to the Giants, but did not go to the Giants, and then kind of went back to the Twins. So there's a lot going on there. Their starting rotation is interesting too. They have one guy who's their number one starter right now. He was actually an all-star last year in Pablo Lopez. He went 8-11, and he had a 3.66 ERA. And I didn't realize that was good enough for an all-star, but I guess it is. So there's a few question marks in the rotation. Obviously, they brought in a few free agents to fill the spots. I'd be curious to see if they bring up their number 5th prospect. I can't remember his first name, but I think he's in Double A right now. He's one of their top pitchers. So I feel like they did all right in adding what they needed. Like I said, they lost a few good pitchers, key guys for their rotation, and they, I guess, replaced them. There was a lot of turnover in their bullpen too. I think they changed out like 8 different guys, so I'd be curious to see how later in the season and in games how those guys fit and how the manager will use them, being all new guys in the team. Yeah. There's also one former Tiger on there. I believe he's in the bench, but he also plays everywhere in Willie Castro. So that's the Tiger connection there for me. That's pretty much all I got for the Twins right now.
So I'm going to continue on now with the Kansas City Royals. Kansas City is another team with a lot of exciting pieces, in my opinion. Starting with their leader Salvador Perez at catcher. When he came up, he was just a stellar catcher, and he's the face of the franchise. Not anymore though, because the next guy I'm going to talk about is Bobby Witt Jr., who we talked about a couple weeks ago, signed an 11-year contract to stay with the Royals. That's a huge signing for baseball in general, not just the Royals, but in baseball in general. When these traditional small market teams can keep their all-stars, this is good for baseball. A couple other players to talk about here. We got Hunter Renfroe. He signed with the Royals in the offseason. If you look at Hunter Renfroe, he looks just like Mike Trout. Now, he doesn't play like Mike Trout, but the guy is basically his twin. It's crazy how much he looks like him. But he's a solid big league player. Kyle Isbell, he is also an outfielder for them. His bat, there's not a whole lot to be excited about with his bat, but he plays a really good defensive outfield, which he actually led the team outfielders in WAR last year, which is a very confusing stat, which I'm not even going to get into. But it's a stat I guess I'll get into a little bit. It's a stat that basically equivalates every angle of your game, so base running, defense, hitting, everything, and it tells you how many wins you're worth to your team over a replacement level player. And he led the team outfielders in WAR last year. A couple key offseason moves this team made. They, like I said, they re-signed Bobby Witt Jr. To an 11-year extension. They brought in infielder Adam Frazier. I think that'll help this team a lot. The before mentioned Hunter Renfroe, that's a nice signing, 3-year contract for him. They brought in Michael Waka, starting pitcher, and then a couple of guys for their bullpen, Seth Lugo and Will Smith. So they were pretty active this offseason, one of the more active teams in the division, really. A couple key players they lost, though. They lost Zach Greinke. I'm not sure if Greinke's signed anywhere else. I don't believe he has. He might have actually retired. I'm not sure. And then they lost pitcher Brad Keller, who's a depth pitcher. And they also lost infielder Matt Duffy. This team, in my opinion, like I said, very young team here again. Some nice young pieces. I like some of these pieces they got going on here. This team last year finished last in the division. They got Matt Quattraro as their manager. He's in the second year. They only won 50 some odd games last year, so how much can they step up? I'm not entirely sure. Again, I liked the moves. I like Hunter Renfroe. He's not an all-star or anything like that, but he's a nice baseball player. He's going to be a good pickup for them. Bobby Witt Jr., all he's going to do is get better, and he's an all-star or superstar in the making. So this team, I think, is going to take a huge step this year. I'm pretty as a baseball fan, I'm excited for the step that I think this team is going to take. As a Tigers fan, this team scares me a little bit. Like I said, there's 4 teams in this division this division's down to 4 teams, basically. All 4 of them I could see finishing anywhere from 1st to 4th. And Kansas City is in that conversation. The one team that I have absolutely no confidence in this division is the Chicago White Sox, who Alex is going to talk to you guys about now.
Yeah, when I was doing research on them, I could have sworn this was a AAA team with a few guys that are getting ready to get promoted. They do have an all-star in Luis Robert. And yeah, this team was interesting. They lost their starting shortstop in Tim Anderson, and their veteran catcher in Yasmani Grandal. They did bring in Paul DeYoung and Martin Maldonado to replace those guys in their positions. But I feel like their top prospect in Colson Montgomery, who's a shortstop, might be able to slide in if he has a good spring here. And by the looks of it, he was off to a hot start. So I think it'd be interesting to see if they allow him to start on the opening day roster. They also added a former Royal, and Tigers know this guy very well as well, in Mike Moustakas. And then they always added one of my favorite outfielders, only because of how his last name is, Kevin Pillar, which reminds me of Millar. And that is from the MLB Network, and Brandon knows all about that.
1-5.
Kevin Millar. Yeah, Kevin Millar. If you never listened to Kevin Millar and any of his stuff, go listen to him. He has some great stories too. He's always fun to listen to. Yeah, there's not too much about this team other than they're probably going to be one of the worst teams. They brought in a few pitchers that struggled everywhere else. Yeah, there's not really much. This is kind of I don't know what to say, kind of team, other than they're going to be the worst team in the division, possibly the MLB.
Yeah, one thing I didn't mention with the Royals is when I was looking up these teams, I wanted to hit on a couple of key prospects. The Royals don't really have any prospects that are impact players at all. MLB has not released their top 30 prospects for each team, so I found a different website, and this website ranks them in tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, basically the lower the tier. So like 4 and 5, these are prospects that you don't get too excited about. All of the Royals prospects that they mentioned were tier 4 and 5 prospects. So that's a concern for me for the Royals for the future. But again, they have some nice pieces on the big league club right now, so we'll see what happens. But we're going to make our predictions now for this division. Again, if you are expecting us to talk about the Tigers, we will talk about them after this whole series is done, we're going to do a special on the Tigers because I feel like we could have a really fun discussion going back and forth on different things with the Tigers. I think that's going to be a really fun episode for us. Being that we're both Tiger fans, yes, I'm wearing a Royals hat if you're watching on the YouTube or Facebook. I have hats for every baseball team, so you'll see me in a different hat if you haven't noticed that by now. But finishing last in this division, I think we both agree with this one, will be the White Sox. This team, they were supposed to be the team of the future. They made some really, at the time, we thought nice moves to rebuild their farm system. They had a lot of young, exciting talent. And then they made a hire that set this franchise back years. And if you made this hire 20, 30 years ago, it's probably the best hire in baseball. Unfortunately, they made that hire in the year of 2019, 2020, somewhere in that range. And they brought in Tony La Russa to be the manager of this team. And again, back in the day, Tony was a top manager. What happened here is he used to manage the White Sox, and the White Sox fired him. And I think the owner never forgave himself for that and wanted to make things right with Tony and had a team that was really good and thought a Hall of Fame manager like Tony La Russa is what this team needed. And it wasn't. He just couldn't connect with the ball players of today. It was basically the team was full of energy, young guys who wanted to bat flip, celebrate, and that's not the old way of baseball like Tony La Russa wants. It was a cultural clash. And that hire, I truly believe, set this organization back years. And I think we're seeing that now. That basically, they're sending everybody away, and they're going to start the rebuild again. So, yeah, the White Sox, they're just not going to be a good baseball team this year. And they only have themselves to blame because I truly believe the Tony La Russa hire is why we're in the spot with them and not talking about them winning the division for the next 5 years like we thought they would be. I'm assuming you have the White Sox at number 5 also.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Do you have anything you want to add?
I think we kind of both covered it. Yeah, no, we're good.
All right. I'll let you go next then. Who's your number 4 team?
I actually have the Kansas City Royals as my number 4 team. Kind of like what we talked about last week and how the AL East was probably one of the hardest ones to rank. This one is AL Central is also one of the hardest ones to rank, but for the opposite reason because all these teams are bad.
Yep.
I mean, other than Bobby Witt Jr. on that team, kind of like you said, they don't really have any other guys that can help them out. And someone had to be number 4, and it just ended up being the Kansas City Royals.
So my number 4 is the Guardians. Like I've said multiple times, 1 to 4 in this division is relatively competitive, meaning there's really no elite team that's just going to run away with this division. They're all pretty mid teams. I'm picking Cleveland to finish 4th because I just don't know what we're going to get with Steven Vogt, that manager. Because Terry Francona, he won a lot of games just by him being the manager. And now that he's not there anymore, how much of a drop-off is going to be there on this team? They didn't really make any huge signings that got me really excited. And I guess either to Kansas City, but I just have more question marks in my head for Cleveland than Kansas City. So I am putting Cleveland at number 4. And that means I have Kansas City at number 3. And I think this team takes a decent step forward. Like I said, they won, I think it was 59 games last year, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in that range. I think 75 to 80 wins is actually realistic for this team this year. I'm really high on them. I think they have some nice pitching. Their bullpen, I think, is going to be really good this year. Bobby Witt Jr. Hunter Renfroe's not an all-star, but I like the Hunter Renfroe signing. So I think this team will take a nice step forward. I just don't think they're strong enough to catch up to the final other 2 teams in this division. and Detroit and Minnesota. So I have Kansas City at 3.
I actually have the Guardians as the number 3 team. I totally forgot until you kept saying it that Tito retired from their team. Um, but they were also in it with the Tigers last year towards the end. I guess not in it, fighting for second place. So I figured they would still be the same. But when you said that Tito was gone, I kind of forgot about that. Then that's why I have him as my number 3 team.
Yeah, I forgot about it too, actually. And I'm like, wait a second, I think Tito retired. So then I looked
Yeah,
it up when I was previewing this team. I'm like, oh yeah, he did. Who'd they bring in? And I'm like, Stephen Voigt, really? Like
yeah,
that's out there.
yep.
Who do you have finishing second in this division?
Uh, I actually have the Detroit Tigers finishing second in this season. Um, I just, and we'll talk about this, like you said later. I don't know how I feel about this team yet. Um, Obviously, it's just prediction here. Um, with the few acquisitions, if Riley Green can stay healthy, I think he has a chance to carry this team.
Oh,
Along with
he's a superstar. If he stays healthy, he turns into a superstar this year.
yeah, and with AJ Hinch now having that extra bat spot in the DH where he doesn't have to put Cabrera in all the time, I think he's gonna be able to manage the games. The Not manage the game, but the lineup. He'll be able to mix the lineup in a little better with how he really wants to his guys to line up and hit. So I have them finishing second place.
I also have the Tigers in second place. I know a lot of people are picking the Tigers to win this division. I can understand where they're coming from. I just don't see it. This team has a lot of holes still. The biggest question mark for me, there's 2 big question marks I have. You have the top 3 guys in your lineup in Torque, Green, and Kerry Carpenter. Kerry Carpenter to me is a question mark in himself. Can he repeat what he did last year? I personally think he can, but I would not be shocked if he can't. I see a lot of Chris Shelton in him. There's an old, and we'll talk more about this at the end.
Oh,
Yeah, there's an old name for you.
you think he's Chris Shelton?
I'm not saying I think. I'm saying there's potential,
I think he's
and we'll
past Chris Shelton, but we'll talk about it later.
we'll talk more about that when we talk more about the Tigers. So you got those 3 bats, and let's just assume that Carpenter is the real deal. So you have 3 bats. Who are your other 6 hitters? Because you need more than 3 hitters to win in Major League Baseball, especially when it's going to be Torque, Green, and Carpenter. They're batting 2, 3, 4 in whatever order. That's your 2, 3, 4 hitters right there. So you need probably 2 to 3 more guys stepping up, and I just don't know who those guys are going to be. Maybe Colt Keith is the real deal, and again, we'll talk more about that. The other question I have with the Tigers is, do the pitchers stay healthy? And that is a big question with this team because it's been 2 years now of the pitchers not being healthy. Yeah, they brought in, and we'll talk more about these signings in a couple weeks. They brought in Jack Flaherty and, like you said, Kenton Maeda. So does Casey Mize stay healthy? Does Tariq Skubal, who a lot of people are saying is a Cy Young candidate this year, does he stay healthy? If Tariq Skubal stays healthy this year, yeah, he's Cy Young caliber pitcher. The issue is he hasn't stayed healthy.
Staying healthy, yeah.
All 3 of them, Matt Manning, Tariq Skubal, Casey Mize, none of them have stayed healthy. And that's been the Achilles heel of the Tigers is they just can't stay healthy with the starting pitchers. And they've had to dip down into Toledo and do a lot of bullpen games. And granted, they've managed. AJ Hinch and Chris Fetter have done a heck of a job with this pitching staff. But yeah, there's just with the question marks I have with the offense and the pitching staff staying healthy, I can't pick them to win this division. I just can't. Clearly, I'm rooting for them. I want them to win this division. It's theirs. Like, it's open for them. Like, if they can stay healthy and play at the level that they're capable of, yeah, they can win this division. But for the sake of conversation, I'm picking Minnesota to win this one. And it's basically by default because, like I've said, there's no team in this division that is so much
Clear.
better than everybody else. We're like, man, that team's going to win this division, no questions asked.
Right. They're not running
And
away with the division.
yeah, they're not running away with this one. The loss of Sonny Gray, I actually forgot about that one. That's going to be a huge loss for the Twins. I'm not too concerned about Joey Gallo. He's a shell of himself. In Minnesota, he wasn't really the deep threat bat. I mean, he would hit a home run here and there, but it wasn't anything like when he was with Texas. So that loss isn't as big to me. Their biggest question mark, in my opinion, is the health of Byron Buxton. This is
Yeah, I
another
forgot to
player.
add that. Yeah,
Yeah,
he, from what I was reading, he's actually recovered, and they're actually gonna put him back at center field. I don't know how I feel about that with all of his injuries and knees.
yeah,
But he's if he's healthy and can, patrol that center field, then he's gonna and we can get into the stats we want, but his WAR will be nice for the Twins.
yeah. He is one of those players that he's an all-star. Like, he's a superstar in this league
Mhm.
if he's healthy. The issue is he has not been healthy his entire career.
I think
Last
it's
year,
been 2 years since he's played in center field from what I was reading.
yeah, last year they basically had him as a full-time DH, and he's not. I mean, he's got a decent enough bat, but his value comes in playing a really good center field or really good outfield. Now, what they're going to end up having to do, I'm betting, is move him to right field or left field, just
Mhm.
to keep him healthy. Kind of like what the Tigers are having to do with Riley Green. Uh, that's my comparison right there. He's better than Riley Green. I like him more than I like Riley Green. But yeah, so that's my biggest question mark with Minnesota. But basically, they won the division last year. Yeah, they lost Sonny Gray. My other concern I have with this team is I don't like their manager. I don't like Rocco. I think he lost them a lot of games last year. The only reason that they've won this division is because everybody else is just so bad at baseball. But they have a bottom tier manager, in my opinion. So that could also come back to bite them, especially if the Tigers take the steps that everyone says they do. AJ Hinch is a top 10 manager. Rocco is a bottom 10 manager. So, but yeah, I'm taking Minnesota to win this division, unless if the Tigers make a splashy move in the next couple weeks to both either bring in a nice starting pitcher or bring in a bat that can play. I don't know what position they would have open right now, but bring in another bat that I get excited about. But we'll talk more about the Tigers again in a couple weeks. Why do you have Minnesota win this division?
By default, honestly. Like you pretty much covered everything that needs to be said. Yeah, and that's how I'm gonna end that.
All right, guys. That is all we have for you today. We will be back on Monday when we come back to the movie preview or movie ranking series, excuse me. A quick note on that. There was an audio issue with the intro. So I took it down from Spotify and I believe I fixed it. I uploaded it back up. So I'm sorry about that. Next time, I know exactly what I did wrong. I won't do that again. But yeah, thank you guys so much for checking us out. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section or email us at hardballsportstalk@gmail.com. Be sure to like us on Facebook and tell your friends about us. We have a lot of exciting episodes coming up for you guys, so be on the lookout for the movie rankings this series. We have interviews with John Minch coming, and we also have one with Rounders that we're scheduling right now too. So we have a lot of fun times coming up, and we hope you guys are part of the ride with us. Thank you guys so much for checking us out, and I hope you have a great day.